resume recording. Hi. Thank you for responding because I was like, well, I'm going to see since there's so, like since we're such a small group if people want to switch it. So I'm glad you have stuff to talk about. I'm excited.
I do.
But I do feel like I pulled a card for all of us today, and it's called Answer the Call. What is your soul calling you to do?
Okay.
And I'm going to quickly read this to you, and then I want to hear some wins. Says your guidance is divinely guided. You are being called to answer the call of your soul. It might be scary, it might not make sense, but if you trust your soul's yearning, you will live a life beyond what your mind could possibly imagine. Answering your soul's calling is not a one-time thing, rather a lifelong dance. Deep down, you already know what you long for, what your soul yearns for. Whatever you are called to do, that is your calling. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for permission. Just say yes. Most people are waiting for a step-by-step plan before they take the first step. But intuition doesn't work like that. It takes faith and courage to answer the calls of your soul. And that's why most people don't do it. But you are not most people. You are in exactly the right place to answer your calling now. You don't need to know the whole plan. You don't even need to know where it's leading. You just need to take the next step. No one has ever had the complete, perfect plan. There is no end destination. There is no right or wrong way to do it, and you do not need permission from anyone else. Sometimes the more resistance we have around answering a soul calling, the more important it is to our soul's growth.
It's like my soul's calling always brings up anger, pisses me off.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Yeah,
I did not want this one. I tried to run from it. Keeps chasing me.
Time to embrace it, Kathy.
Like there's these geese in front of my friend's house at her lake house, and they lay eggs every year, and they think he's shooting blanks because they never hatch. And that duck that goose will lay on that egg for months. I'm like, that's her calling. Yep. It's a waste of time.
Okay.
Maybe the one time she didn't sit on the egg, it would be a live one.
I know, but she's sitting on it for like 3 times the length of a normal egg hatching because she won't give up until the eggs literally explode. No. I'm like, is that me?
No. Because your eggs are hatching, you just don't see it. And that's sometimes the struggle of a leader, is you don't always see the fruits of your labor, right?
Yeah.
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 Like, shut up. Pam, your turn.
I always love that movie When Harry Met Sally, when she's like, I just found Carrie Fisher's character. I just found a receipt. They just bought a new dining room table. He's never going to leave her. And Sally goes, no one thinks he's ever going to leave her. And she goes, you're right. I know you're right. Where you know she's saying it, but you know she doesn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Chapter 1, Metafix. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so what is on your mind today, ladies?
So for me,
you look stressed.
I look stressed.
Well, the way you were like, okay.
Yeah, I have a lot going on. Like, there's a meeting going on right now that I was like, hey guys, I gotta run. I'm out. But I have my new employee is on the meeting, and so she's going to take notes and figure out whatever we need to keep track of. But yeah, I have 2 new employees that we're getting going, and so that's a lot, and we just have a lot of things going on with clients and all good things. But in the meantime, I've been approached a couple times now to do some coaching with people related to their businesses, their whether it's their the financial side. Usually that's what they come to me for, and then we go sometimes into bigger things. Like my CPA just reached out to me and she was like, hey, I really need to grow a team. what, I know you've done it, you've been through, different program, like what program or coaching would you recommend? And I was like, well, here's some things, but if you want to work with me, like, I feel like I could help you, right? And then
Good
there was a
job.
woman who reached out to me on our, it's like a Facebook group for local accounting women.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm having these issues and I need to figure out, like, I've been in business for 5 years and, right now I've got 2 employees and one of them's not doing a great job. And, now that employee's leaving and, how do I build this? How do I make it work? Right. So like, I've done all this work and I feel like I can help, but now I need to figure out, like, what does that look like?
Mhm.
What do packages look like? Or do I just charge by the hour? Like, how do I sell it? How do I don't have enough time to really go out and market it because I don't have the capacity to do a bunch of people. But there are people that are coming to me, and I'm doing the Lachelle's friend. I'm working with her.
Yep.
And I feel like that's going really well.
And you're
we're
getting
gonna
some good
get
market
her-
research from that?
I think I will for sure. Because she's agreed to let me kind of like ask her all the questions when we're done and like get a lot of good feedback from her. And I'm making some money. Like, I charged her probably half of what I would have charged her, but
Okay,
at least
so
I'm
what's
making
the
some money.
half and what would you charge?
So I'm charging her 2,000. I told her I would likely charge 3 to 5 if I was doing it not to get market research, right? Like if I was just selling it. But I don't know that that's the right number either, right? That's kind of why I was working with her to see, like, what is the time? What are the things that we end up focusing on? What are the important parts, right? Like, I'm trying to kind of piece all the things together.
Yeah.
Then I was like, if I were to work with my CPA who's trying to grow her team, needing to figure out how to delegate and how to get her systems in place and, all of those things. What's the length of time that would take? What would we work through? Like, how would I do all of the, like, it seems very like big, but I also feel like I don't have to have all the answers to start working with her because I know all the things. I just don't have a step-by-step plan.
This card is so appropriate for today. And I don't mean because
know.
it's step by step, but like just stepping into your calling, right?
Yeah.
What was our one-on-one? Do you remember for this month? Let me go out and search you.
Probably not until I get back from France.
Yeah, July 23rd.
Yep.
Okay. What do you got going on this afternoon? Clock would be 3 o'clock your time.
I have 3 o'clock my time. I have I'm training.
You're booked. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime
So
after 5 my time, I'm available.
okay. Yeah, I'm in a meeting this afternoon. I rejoined the hospital foundation board here, and so I'm in a meeting, but so I want you to think about now, what are you working with Lachelle's friend on? We're gonna get
So
really
for her, we're cleaning up all of her books. We're so that she has good financial data to actually trust and understand. We are finding her break-even point. We're putting together a budget and then looking at cash flow. Those are really the 4 pieces that we're working on.
so
And in the
almost
meantime, she has like employees coming and going and contracts coming and going. And so we're trying to create a baseline so she has something to say, okay, this is the plan. If any of these pieces change, here's where we change it and it will flow through to update the plan, right? That's
right.
the idea, so that it's not so, oh my God, when something changes. She
Right.
actually
So
has
this
them
is almost like
to
a
refer
loving
to.
your numbers kind of plan, right? Like it's all about the
Yeah.
numbers, it's all about the books, I know you're not an accountant, so that's why I'm not using the word accounting, but like all the accounting stuff,
I mean,
right?
I am an accountant. I'm just not a licensed CPA.
So like cleaning up all the chart of accounts and like making sure everything's clean.
Right, like when she invoices, making sure that it's actually going to the right income line, and like we recalculated her buckets, right? So that her income accounts and her expense accounts, we could roll everything up and see higher level where the things were. And she has a clinic, and one of the things we're looking at is, okay, for the clinic, are you making enough money to sustain the clinic? Because it looks like from what I'm looking at, you're maybe breaking even.
Yeah.
Right. So at that point,
Which
you're
happens a
taking
lot.
up resources to have this clinic open that you could be spending elsewhere. And so if you have a limited number of resources, i.e. people, how do you bring more people into the clinic to make it worthwhile? Or how do you just get rid of the clinic or, reduce the cost of the clinic so that it is making money, those kinds of things we're looking at.
Yep, totally get it.
But she couldn't do any of that because her stuff was just a mess. She had like 4 different accounts for postage and delivery,
Yeah.
right? Like nothing was lumped together, all those things.
Yeah, so kind of where I'm going here, Pam, is like, if you think about, you've got like one package you could create around, like, come up with some fun name that you want to, right? What my old coach used to say all the time is coming to me, and I used to hate it, where she'd say, make love to the numbers. I'm like, no, but like something, I don't know why that keeps coming up. It must be catchy, but like something about, I think about how many business owners don't understand like how to read a P&L, how to read a balance sheet, and understand like what those mean. I just had somebody yesterday asking about professional development, and well, when it's like this top line and then this, I'm like, yeah, it's a tax deduction, right? Like you still are paying for it. Like they get this idea that they're not paying for it if it's a tax deduction. I'm like, oh my God. So it's kind of like you're doing some teaching and educating on the numbers and getting things cleaned up, auditing, going through all that.
Yeah.
Then what it sounds like this other person that was talking to you is more about leadership and management, right? And systems. Like, how do I delegate? How do I lead a team? How do I create some vision? How do I lead that team and not only lead them, but manage without getting too in the weeds, allowing them to make the decisions. And that goes hand in hand with what kind of systems you have. Because one of the things that I told Meredith, she's finally wearing off on me, that the more like infrastructure I have, not like caged in structure, but infrastructure I have, the freer I am. Right. And that's kind of this idea that I'm hearing you say on this other piece. So I think you've got 2 like distinct packages based on what they want and need. And now it's just deciding, what does that include, right? Is it talking to you twice a month? Is it 6 months that you work with someone and then you go on a retainer? And honestly, when I first started out doing packages, particularly like this, that had more complexity, is I would look at and say, okay, approximately, like I'm thinking about project work I used to do for some 501(c)(3)s. How many hours would this take me to do all the investigatory things? How many hours would it take me to write up the report and then deliver the report? And then, oh yeah, let's add about 5 to 10 more hours because the communication back and forth and like getting people set up for meetings and all of that kind of stuff. It helped me then kind of put it together to say, okay, yeah, if this went all according to plan, it's actually a heck of a lot more than $5,000. Right. Or it's less than that, but I'm going to charge $5,000. And it helps for me, it helped gauge just a little bit of where I was headed. And then it helped me get my arms around it. Right. And so like, I could almost see you having 3 like puzzle pieces, right? Like components. One is the actual accounting, understanding your numbers, cleaning that up, the list is endless of stuff down there. Right.
Yeah.
And that includes some meetings, but that one's probably not as meeting heavy as the one about leadership, meaning one-on-one with them.
Yeah, like I'm meeting with Christina once a week, and each week it's another topic, right? And so then she's got to go home and do her homework, and then we come back together and, move forward.
And that's Lachelle's friend.
Mhm.
Okay. So,
but it's harder for me to wrap my brain around, like, if I were to help, like, work with my CPA and help her build a team, get her systems in place, like, it's initially less about leadership and more about the tactical side, right? Like, what software do I use and what policies do I need to have in place? And how do I, what's the regular like meeting cadence, and how do I evaluate her productivity and her, accuracy and all of those things, like what do we measure and what do we like, so it's a lot more tactical initially. And then as her team grows, I would assume it would, move into more of like the leadership type stuff,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm having a problem with my employee and her productivity is down, or she's not, not being
Right.
accurate or not.
Because then it sways
Being
away from
responsive.
systems, and that's the third component I was thinking of as more of an HR, right? So
Yeah.
there's a component of leadership with systems and really management with systems, and then the managing of the employee, which is kind of a third component.
Mhm.
And so when do you leave for Paris?
Next Wednesday, the 10th.
Okay, so you're not needing this done before the 23rd.
I don't need to have my packages in place, but I do need to get back to the two people that I've said, like the one person I talked to whose employee is leaving and she's got to hire somebody and she wants to get systems in place to make sure, like I told her, I was like, we could just probably, and I had to get back to her with some kind of proposal. I was like, we could we could do it just kind of on an hourly basis. And because it's so, hers is so small, and I mean, it could continue. She could love working with me and want to keep paying me, but I was like, if if we get to where you want to go and you've got nothing to talk about that month, maybe we, take a break. And then when you're ready, you come back to it.
Yeah, so
But
Pam, I think you have that one figured out. Get back with her on that one. And then on the 23rd, let's really dig into these packages. And what I would ask you to do is to think about, like, just put 3 pieces of paper in front of you, or, like paper. So 3 things on your computer, and
Yeah.
say, like the accounting, and it doesn't have to be the exact word that you want, but like the accounting piece, the systems piece, and the leadership management HR piece, right?
Mhm.
Or HR piece. And then just start listing like what all that would include. And I don't mean necessarily meeting weekly or whatever, but like topics of what you're thinking. And you don't have to be down to the detail of understanding their software or whatever, right? Let's just assume it's QuickBooks for accounting. But then it's like, in the accounting, you're going to do an audit of their current system. That you're going to fix any, nothing drives me crazier than when you have an accounts receivable or an accounts AR. And what's the other one? Why did I just lose that?
Accounts payable.
Thank you. And an AP that are on a different thing. And so then it shows that you still have an invoice out and that you've got money over here that's not attached to something, right? Like
Yeah.
that happens a lot too with people. And so like you're cleaning all that up, doing all of that, like you can have some pretty good ideas. Don't get down into the weeds of kind of what's covered. And then it helps you decide the structure, right? Like, is this something that we want to try to get done in 6 months? And so that means I am going to meet with them every week, or is it, that we're going to do group calls on certain things, as you have more people. So just kind of give some like infrastructure thought to that. And then on the 23rd, let's put some meat on the bones.
Yeah, for like an hourly arrangement, like for the woman who I didn't know who contacted me, how do I even, like, I would charge $125 an hour if I'm doing bookkeeping, but I'm not, right? So it's obviously higher level than that. Do I just pluck a number out of the air and see if she'll go for it?
Yeah. So, and here's what I would say. I'm using my calculator here. Like, I try to stay away from hourly because that's kind of that,
Me too.
like scarcity mentality a little bit too. So what I want you to do is figure out, okay, if I met with her twice a month and it's $200 an hour, that's $400. And let's say we met over the course of 6 months and there's additional work that goes into that, like you're already up to 2,400, like you kind of figure out based on that, and then always pump it up more because there ends up being more communication that happens,
Yeah.
more time that like you're prepping for a call or whatever too. And that's how I would approach that. I would say, looking at kind of what you want to accomplish and what the objective is of this. I think we need to work together for 6 months. Here's like the cadence of how that happens.
Mhm.
And here's what the investment is. And then at the end of 6 months, we'll talk about what's next. Because the kind of the risk you run into sometimes of doing hourly, and it's okay, Because you run a risk too of doing packaging. There's pros and cons to both. Is then if you come back and she wants to do something else with you, then there will be the expectation of an hourly rate
Mhm.
and her hourly, she's thinking time you're spending with her, not
Right.
time you're spending prepping or reviewing the reports or reviewing her QuickBooks or, like she doesn't
Right.
see that back end stuff.
Right, like with Christina, I'm doing a ton of work outside on her QuickBooks file and like fixing all of the things.
Yeah.
It's been a lot more involved than I had anticipated.
Yeah. And that's a really good learning, right? Because
Mhm.
that's where I meant like pump it up more than what you think, because there's
Yeah.
always other things that come into that. And so then I would look at like, what are you making when you think about a salary, whether you're making a salary or not? Because if we're all similar, it's kind of like you just pull out what you need for your bills. And then if there's a little left and you need
I'm
something.
an S corp, so I have to have a salary.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, yeah. So how, like, what would be your hourly rate for working it on the books as the CEO? Do you know?
I think I figured out like, well, if I set my salary to what I wanted to earn and
Mhm.
divided it obviously by the number of hours I want to work,
Mhm.
it was like $100 an hour, which is low. I mean, I don't charge anybody $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Like to me, like the consulting piece should be at least $200 an hour.
Yeah. I think you have your answer right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm a firm believer, like when you say pull a number out of the air, I think the universe is giving you some numbers, right? Like that are hitting with you. And Kathy, feel free to
Mhm.
jump in here too, because I can tell you're like wanting to say something. But like, so if that number is coming to you, then use that number to calculate approximately how many hours you think you would be spending with this person. And then what I tended to do too is I said to them, the time you see me when we're having these meetings and doing these things is part of it, but there's a lot of work that goes in the back end that you don't see that I'm also accounting for. Yeah.
Right.
Kathy, I can always tell because you're like, I'm going to close
I'm
my
like,
mouth for
"Just
a
keep it in, keep it in, keep it in." No,
Mhm.
I'll just say like that the hourly rate, like in addition to what she says, is like for me, I have to have my downtime to be able to be productive for them. And so, kind of like that's part of my rate is that I get 2 hours to meditate or whatever. So you need to have your life balance in there and your travel and stuff so that you could be focused when you're focused.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's not quite linear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's where there's kind of an art I found when you first start to, and the reason I say go in and calculate your hours and then bump it up, and the bumping up, thank you, Kathy, because that's a great perspective. So like for me, part of my job is to read and grow and develop and learn. And sometimes that means dropping 10 grand for a day of coaching with Peter Crone, right? Like, so
Right.
to Kathy's point, I have to like put some of that cost from my mind or investment into that pricing.
Mhm.
Um, and so then if 200 is what's coming to you, calculate those hours. But then I almost honestly, I'm thinking back to the last project I did with a 501(c) where I kind of priced out things like that. And I actually doubled, like I figured this is how many hours I would take interviewing people to get the information and the hours I would
Mhm.
spend typing up the like observations and the recommendation and presenting it. And then I doubled those hours because of all the
Mhm.
back and forth and they're going to text you with things and that's part of it.
Yeah. And I think the harder part for me is I genuinely don't have a good grasp on how long it's gonna take, right?
Yeah.
Like accounting work, I can tell you all day long, it's gonna take about this amount of time, right? And I think that's the difference. What I'm doing with Christina is consulting and coaching,
Yeah.
right? The consulting piece is what I'm doing actually to solve the problem for her, and then coaching her how to use the numbers going forward to make business decisions, right? So there's kind of both.
Hmm.
Whereas Trisha is the other person, who who just needs some help, like figuring out her systems and processes. That would be mostly coaching. I wouldn't actually be setting up the process, the systems for her and this,
Right.
and, you know, I would just be kind of guiding her. And then with Kate, my CPA, it would probably be a combination of the two, depending on the systems. Like she might want me to help her get it set up. So there might be some consulting actually like doing and
Yeah.
some coaching.
Yeah, and I think this is perfect because the universe is giving this to you, right? To look at like the consulting and coaching piece of it. And
Mhm.
that's where like to start out with, because you've got three, like look at how much would you charge for the coaching? And here's the deal, your wisdom is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than you actually going in and doing the work,
Mhm.
right? The consulting piece of it.
Yeah,
And
so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that a different rate? Like, how do I do that part?
I think you combine it, right? Because you're going to end up doing both in all of
Mhm.
these, even the
Yeah.
one where you think it's just going to be coaching, right? You're going to be like, oh, this system's messed up. Just give it to me and we're going to like figure this out.
Let me just
right?
fix it. Can't help myself.
Yeah. And
Please.
so that's where like talking about the masculine and feminine energy, right? Like the let's get in and get tactical and do the pieces, and how do I coach you to then be able to do these things? And so I would just look at it and say, okay, if I charge $300 an hour for coaching and $200 an hour for consulting, or $300 period, what would that be, right?
Mhm.
And so kind of a yes no answer to your question about pulling a number out of the air, like the number's coming to you,
Mhm.
the universe is giving you a number, use that one to start out with. And then here's the deal, when you're putting these packages together, really look at and say, can I make an impact with this within 3 months, or is it 6 months? Because then you can look at it from a learning perspective. Because here's the deal, Pam, I think did I tell you guys how I raised my rates this last time? So like I have had, other than the mastermind, and now I had people on a $12,000 rate, I had people on a $15,000 rate, and I had people on a $20,000 rate. Because after I had so many clients and I got up to 20 clients, I was like, okay, after you sell 2 or 3 clients at that rate, you raise your rate.
Mhm.
But it's got to be something you feel comfortable about. So when you're talking about it, the energetic exchange feels comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So when I switched my rates to 20 grand, I had just signed 7 people at a retreat. And then I had 2 other people that had just signed up with me, having 9 out of 20 clients all in the same stage of, oh shit, I want to run. Like between that 4 and 6 month time frame, I was like, whoa. And so it was a really good learning for me not to do that again. But the point being is that once I had sold all of that at 15,000, I thought, I don't want another client. Well, I had somebody reach out to me and they're like, hey, you've come highly recommended. I'd like to talk with you, blah, blah, blah. And it was totally the Tommy Boy scene about, I got a Meat Lover's Pizza in the back of the trunk when he's trying to get the wings and he actually sold something.
Yeah.
So I meet this guy for coffee in Coeur d'Alene. We have a conversation. I tell him it's 20 grand to work with me because I'm like, he's not going to go for that, right? Like, I can't take on another client right now. And I said, I can't start working with you until like 2 months from now. And then all of a sudden, when you say that to people are like, what? You can't work with me for 2 months? Like, oh my God, I got to like sign up with you right away. So then he calls me back and says, well, I have a few questions to ask you, because I'm interviewing a few people to be my coach. And he said, why should I work with you? And I said, well, actually, that's not a question I can answer. You need to answer that. And he's like, oh, nobody said that to me. You're hired. I'm like, shit, I didn't want another client. And then I'm like,
Right?
oh, yes, I raised my rates to 20 grand, right? Like I just threw it out there because I was like, I can't do this. I can't take on another person. I was
Yeah.
lucky I moved it by 2 months, right? So then it went with that way. But then that gave me the confidence to say, here's how much I'm worth and here's how much I charge.
Mhm.
So just because you like go with one for Lachelle's friend doesn't, and I know because you're doing market research with that one, but it doesn't mean they all have to have the same rate. Now, if you're
Right.
doing the same exact thing, because what happens, the law of compensation, what happens is when you raise your rates, you immediately add more value, right? Like you'll offer more things, right? When I
Mhm.
first started out, they met with me once a month and I didn't have get shit done days. I didn't have, other things that I did, right?
Mhm.
And so there will be things that then you start to add. Now you don't want to go so far on the other side, right? That then you're like, what am I doing?
Right.
But I would say go with what's coming to you and don't question that number right now, because it doesn't mean that that is etched in gold. That's why I tell people don't ever put your rates on your website.
Right. Yeah, we don't either.
It's not about transparency. It's more about we don't know sometimes what that person needs, right?
Mhm.
Because I've had some people come to me and they're like, nope, I just want to do a VIP day and dig in for 4 hours. I'm like, great, well, here's how much it is. And then after we go through the 4 hours, they're like, oh, I want to be a private client. I'm like, okay, then here's what this is, right? And so, yeah, does that help?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think for Trisha, like I said, I don't really know exactly what she's gonna need. I'm trying, and like you just said, VIP day, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I do offer her like a one-time bigger chunk of time. Let's go through all your stuff. Let's figure out what you got going on, and let's, like maybe instead of like an hour a week or every other week or once a month or whatever, do it all in a big chunk, give her the homework, and then come back and do maybe like a 2-hour follow-up to see, where she's going. And then if she wanted to be an ongoing client at that point, maybe give her, I'm trying to come up with some options, right? Like,
Yeah.
we could do this or we could do this.
Yeah. And Pam, I would suggest to you, I think too, you don't give them options, right? What I do a lot of times, because you all have heard the whole lion and the otter and the, like the different personality types.
Mhm.
So if it's a lion, then I'll kind of say, well, there's 2 or 3 different ways that you can work with me. Here's kind of the one I'd recommend. And I go through all 3, but typically people don't know what they need, right? And so, and you guys can think about this. I did the same exact thing with you, right? Like I got a couple ways you can work with me. You can be a private client where I see you all 12 months, but for 5 more grand, there's this mastermind that I'm doing, and you get free coaching or like monthly coaching plus 6 calls a month in a group situation, right? And
Mhm.
so my recommendation for you would be, I think the mastermind is your best fit. So you take the lead of saying what you think the best fit is. It gives them a sense of, oh, okay, there's a couple of things, because they're hiring you for your expertise. And I see that happen a lot where then people don't take, and it's not even really the word charge. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for here, but like you're the one coaching them and guiding them and saying, hey, based on what we've talked about, here's what I think is probably best for you. And so I have one client that, started out as a VIP day, and typically I charge a little bit less. Like originally I was thinking, oh, I'll charge 8 grand for a VIP day. And then I'm like, no, because normally people that go into a VIP day end up being a client.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's a little bit of a funnel for me. So I charge like $4,500. They come to my office. Like I've had people fly here. We have flip charts all up over my conference room, and we start digging into their business and into those pieces. Then at the end of it, I'll say, based on what we're looking at, what I found to be most effective is you've got some pretty big chunks here that you want to work on, and we're not meant to be here alone. So, and depending on who they are, I might say something like, so let me be your Yoda, right? Like, let me help you and kind of guide you, because we get too close to our own things.
Mhm.
And so therefore I can help, point you by asking you questions and helping you see which direction you want to go. And it helps you then understand really a lot more nuts and bolts. Now, what I also did with that client then too, because part of the package, and so this might be something that you look at as part of the package, is I do a VIP day, but I do it for 3 hours with new clients, because I want to
Okay.
dig into their business, because I want to understand their business so I can help them more and it helps them. And we go through some of the same things that we did in Mexico a little bit. Like we get really crystal clear on some of those areas of what they want out of their life, and then really focus on the business piece of it. And I do that to help me. But then what I did with her, because she wanted to switch industries, is we did her VIP day towards the end of her year, right? Because she
Mm.
got her business up and ready to sell. And now it's like, we need to switch gears and move towards this. So then you can still do some of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's other options other than working with you for months at a time. So if you can start to just jot down some of that and then get back with her and say, yeah, I'm working on some packaging kind of things and looking at what you need. I think we just need to spend 4 hours together. Is she local?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was very honest with her. I said, look, to be honest with you, I said, I'm just starting doing the coaching because people have asked me to do it.
Yeah.
I said, so I don't really have set packages, so I'll put something together for you and, we'll go from there. But I
Yeah.
said, I think, we can just initially, because again, it's all like market research at this point, like figure out what
And
works for
Pam,
her and what works for me.
with VIP days, I typically did a 1 hour session that we could split into 2 half-an-hour sessions,
Mhm.
like 30 and 60 days out. Otherwise, I did it 60 days out to kind of follow up on the plan.
Mhm.
It didn't end up doing that because anyone that's done that ends up being a private client. So, so
Which
then
is
you,
good, right? That's the
yeah,
goal.
absolutely. Absolutely. But like there's a few things in there that you can say, hey, I'll follow up with you. And it provides another opportunity to touch base with them because then knowing what we know, they're probably going to need your services
Mhm.
right after that. So,
Yeah.
and that
And I
same
feel
thing
like I
with
have to
me.
make the number high enough that, like, same thing in my bookkeeping, right? Like, if you say you sell a premium product, but you don't charge a premium price, you confuse people, right? They don't
Absolutely.
understand, how are you delivering a premium product for this low price?
Yeah.
So it has to be high enough that they trust that what they're gonna get is valuable, right? And instead of feeling like, oh, well, she's only gonna charge me $150 an hour, like, how good could she really be? Right? Like, that's where I'm trying to, like,
Yep.
figure that number out, like what says value and premium products without being like, holy shit, I can't afford that.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you, Pam. Everybody's going to tell you that they can't afford it.
Right.
Everybody. Right. And that's where the whole
I
like,
gave mine away for free for the nonprofit. They just started saying I don't have time. They'll find some
Yeah.
resistance.
Right.
yeah, that's so true, Kathy. Like I almost went on live the other day and did a rant about, I'm so tired of people saying they can't afford coaching because you can't afford not to coach, right? Like when I think about clients, and there's some that haven't followed it, right? And haven't done that. But I think about like even Lachelle, right? Like the things she's doing today and the money that she's making, like that's the goal, is not just to have people pay for your coaching, but to make more than what they paid, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it may not all come in that first 6 months or that first year because you're still integrating things. And sometimes the belief isn't always there. And so, yeah. So I think you have a number. What's the number that was coming to you to kind of do some of your initial figuring?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was thinking 200, but I think that might even be too low because I feel like it doesn't say premium.
Yeah.
It says average.
Yeah. I think there was another number tossed around. It might have come out of my mouth, but
300.
yeah.
Yeah, that one's resonating a little more with me. But like
Yeah.
you said, I don't want to say it's $300 an hour. I don't want to say, okay, it's $600 for the month and you'll get 2 sessions out of that, right? Because then they can do the math.
No,
Um,
that's
so how
where
do you present that?
figure out, Pam, you have a deep knowing based on what you've talked to her about, and you might include a 2 hour deep dive, right, into her business
Mhm.
to understand it. But that's where kind of that discovery portion before you start working with them is really important to understand, like, where are they and where do they want to be? Because you can also then, it's almost like an alignment meeting, because then you can align. Because I've had some people say that they want, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, I'm not the coach for you, right? Like that's not what I do. Or this needs to happen and I want to make this much money. Okay, well, I believe that can happen, but you have to do the things that we talk about, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so, so I think you just take that. And again, it's not $600 a month because you're not just meeting with her twice a month.
Right, right.
Because you're going to be thinking about her business. You better believe that I think about your business. I think about Kathy. and her getting her book up and running and coaching. And I think about Carrie and her like gazillion entrepreneur stuff. I think about Chantel, who like, I think about all of you and your business, like it almost never stops. Right.
Right.
And so you have to think about those things as well as what Kathy's saying. And so, yeah. And if you, before you leave, like throw it together, holler at me and we can talk through it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got to get her something this week. Even
Yeah.
if we're not going to start working together this week, I've got to get her something. And then I'm waiting to see what my CPA says, because I gave her some options, right? Because she asked about specific programs and coaches. And then at the end, I
Yeah.
was like, you know what, though? If you'd like to work with me, I'd be happy to help. Right? Because I'm like, well, of course I can
Yeah.
help her because I've done it. Like that's the whole point of what everything I've been doing is so that I can share it with other people.
Yep.
I'm like, here's a potential opportunity.
And this is that perfect example of, oh, yeah, unconditional love. Like I can help you. You want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So if you want to throw something together, the only thing, tomorrow I'm going to be hanging out with my grandson, but it doesn't mean I can't take a call. And then Thursday morning, I know it's 4th of July, but I don't know about you all, but I think we should take the 5th off, particularly living this far north, because fireworks don't start till 11 o'clock because it doesn't get dark. And I'm like, everybody's dragging ass the next day, right? Because they so late. So on the 4th, really, I've got my functional movement class in the morning, but other than that, I'm pretty open until I go to the lake lot late in the afternoon. So if you want to chat, and even
Okay, cool.
it's pretty open, just give me a call.
Yeah, I have Friday afternoon completely open. That's my afternoon. So
Yeah.
Starting in your morning. And on the 4th, I'm really probably just going to the pool. So like there's no fireworks in my future unless somebody's setting them off in the neighborhood.
Fun.
Cool. Well, thank you. I didn't mean to take up the whole time. I want to make sure Kathy has a
A
chance.
few minutes left.
Well, and I think some of the things we talked about are applicable, right? And that's why honestly
Right.
and Kathy, I love your thought about, being in the right space. There is time that you need to take to do those things so that you can be focused, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's substantial for me to be able to read your energy. I have to not have mine fogging up the space.
Fogging up the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my questions is people are going, how can I help you? And I don't have an answer.
With the book, you mean? And
Yeah.
the description of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if you did have an answer?
Well, then I would tell them it.
That's what I love about you. You're like, literally, so quit crying your brain shit on me.
I'm like, I do the brain shit. It's like the literal,
Yeah.
because I'm like, well, my sister's, the one sister finally bought it under pressure of the other sister. And she's like, well, I just told her that I found it interesting and it makes you think. I was like, would you write that as a review?
Here's the
You
deal. Then you ask her, can I put those words into a quote and use it on some things and just use your first name and last initial?
Yeah, I really want a review. There's still no reviews. And so she said she would do it, but then I'm like, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet?
Okay, so right there is one thing when people ask you. So Pam and I both can go out and be specific. So where do you want to review? In Amazon?
On Amazon.
And how do I do a review?
I don't know. I've never done one.
Okay, well, that's your first step. You need to go out
Okay.
and do a review on a book that you've read before, so you know how to say to people, go to Amazon, open up the book, and if you scroll down, it's going to say write a review, click on that, and then just follow the instructions.
Okay.
Because people that's even like in testimonials. Like I have to say, can you please think about what happened? Where were you when we first started to work together? What's happened since then in your business? Like explain some things that have changed for you. Maybe you've shifted gears and are going in a different, like you have to be that specific because otherwise people are like, oh, she's great. Right. Like they just don't know how to do that. So yeah. Okay. So you can ask everyone to go out to Amazon and write a review.
Right.
Now, some of that, they may say, I'm not going to write a review until I read the book.
Yep. I hear that a lot.
Because then you follow up with them And that
Mhm.
might even make another really good email, Kathy, in about 30 days. Send out an email and say, hey, I hope you enjoyed the book. If you could do me, well, you wouldn't talk like this, but I would like do me a solid and go out and put a review,
Do
however you
me a
want.
solid. What decade are we in?
I'm still in the 80s, baby.
And I was like, that sounds like 1988.
But like,
Um,
do me a favor. Many of you have asked how you can help. Here's how you can help me. Like, go out and here's the instructions about how to write a review.
yeah,
Right? Okay, so what else?
that's, I don't know. I mean, I do
Okay.
have the book signing. I have one friend who's, gonna have me on a radio. She's a radio DJ. Small town, but I have one friend that says, I want to gather, a bunch of nurses. She's an instructor of nursing. And I'm like, okay, pick a date, but you know, those are some, but I want to know what else I could do.
Yeah, so write a review is one of them. If somebody says, what can I do to help you? Go out to Amazon and order the book,
Hmm.
right? Another one would be do a small video when the book arrives of you opening the book and being excited that the book came.
Hmm.
Right? I think I sent you a picture and I think I posted it on Facebook. So
You
anytime,
did?
yeah. Oh, I totally did.
Mm.
I did it on my Build Her community too.
Yeah.
And anywhere
So
someone, and I know you're not on social media a ton, but
I had to have people walk me through the 2 posts I did. Nice.
I put from my readings this morning, belief is a polarizing force. It attracts objects, people, and circumstances while repelling others in alignment with the belief. When you hold a belief, you seek evidence that the belief is true, thereby corkscrewing the belief deeper. The belief is what draws the outcome. So then
That's
what you
so
do,
wise. Who said that?
I don't know, quotes. But then
Um,
what you do is you say to people, if you see my posts on Facebook,
share it.
like share it with other, like share it with your feed. Um, or share like a picture of the book and that you're reading it on Instagram or LinkedIn or where, just ask people to just take a picture of the book and say, hey, I'm
Like
reading
the
this book
ones
right now.
I posted. I did one on the Metafix Facebook page and one on mine. Like
Yeah. So
those.
like I purposefully didn't do it because I was going to ask you about it. But like, if I go to let me go, I don't know how sometimes to use this crap either. Okay. So if I go to Kathy Colburn, you have one new post, huh? I wonder what it is. Like people are reading it, right?
Yeah.
Then ask people, you've got 8 comments.
That's
And
a
I
friend
would
in
go out,
Michigan.
here's the other thing too, go out and comment on their comments.
Didn't I?
Well, you put like the love sign.
Okay, so comment.
The reason I say that is like when Pam says, I can't wait to dig into it, you can say, me too. Or like Kimberly's doing the clapping and say thanks, right? Because what happens is then that pulls it into the algorithm. Where like second and third is like if you like it or love it, that's higher
Hmm.
than a different emoji. It's weird, but I'm learning all this marketing stuff from Meredith. But like if you just hit a thanks, then it will show up
Okay.
again in people's feeds. The other thing is like seriously, if people ask you how they can help, say if you would take a picture of the book and just post on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're at, and just say, hey, I'm excited. I'm starting this new book by my friend Kathy. Check it out.
Okay.
Because that's getting the
What
word out.
else? Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I'm
so the
like
reason I
done.
commented on
Hmm.
the post saying I couldn't wait to dig into it, right, is because I knew it would help, right? Like a comment on a post makes more
Okay.
people see the post, right? So like you could tell them just please interact with anything you see on social media related to
Okay.
it. Give me a comment or a like or a follow or whatever, and that helps the algorithms.
Yeah.
Um, whether they respond to somebody else's comment or create their own comment or whatever, it just makes it more visible to other people because the more like
Yeah.
popular the post is, the more they put it out to more people.
Okay. The more the algorithm triggers it to
Yep.
put
Yeah,
it in their
and
news feed.
it's funny. I've even seen some from like a year ago. As a matter of fact, my daughter-in-law said the weirdest thing happened. Somebody commented on a picture of Zachary holding Carter that I think is his profile picture. And they're like, oh my God, did you have the baby yet? Right. They thought it was the new baby because it was like a post that was from 3 years ago that
Yeah.
somebody commented on, and all of a sudden it threw it back into the algorithm stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So,
And then my friend was telling me the one who's the mother of the publisher.
Yeah.
And she was saying he came over to their house for dinner and there was a group of people and they asked what he'd been working on. And she goes, man, he sold it. Like you need to have him introduce you whenever you speak. So I'm like, maybe ask him to do a video of that.
yeah, I think that's good. And then Kathy, I think when you're here, like, I think we go walk around town with your book and say, oh, look what popped up. Like over by the Statue of Liberty, right? Like you can do all sorts of funny things and then it just gets
Okay.
out.
Are there any
Okay.
stores in Sandpoint that sell like local things?
Yes,
The
there,
Hallmark
Local
store?
artists? Maybe
I would-
like
yep.
you could try and like bring some books to them and say, hey, I would love if I could, if you would sell my book in your store, right? Maybe you bring them just 5 books. And if they're trying to advertise that they sell local, well, you're a local author and this
Yeah.
is your book.
I would say Vandeford's because they still have a book section open. I would say the Hallmark store. There's some other kind of places around. I'll have to kind of keep my eyes open of where I see books.
And then you could create like
I might need to order
a
a
sign essentially that like,
box.
they could drop into one of those acrylic sign holders. Like you could create like local author Kathy Colburn, and her first book, right? Or something that just like draws attention to it so they could put it next to the display.
Yeah, and then we could even go around and hang them up like at Evans Brothers, you know how like they have the bulletin boards and people look at those. It was funny. I was there yesterday and there's like 3 people like looking at all the stuff on the bulletin board.
Yeah.
So yeah, from a local perspective, I think that helps. And then I think it's continuing to reach out to friends and the ones that you feel comfortable texting and those that because like you've got your email list, but I would also reach out to some people like Michael Welp who was,
Yeah.
and just say, hey,
He wasn't on the email list and I didn't notice it till he commented on Facebook. So.
Yeah. And so I would even text them and just say, hey, I would really love your support if you could order the book and then, comment on it or something on social media. That'd be great.
Okay.
And you could post on social media little snippets like Debbie did of your book, right? Like a little a quote from the book and how it's relevant to somebody today, right? Like for whatever reason, like
Okay.
the book says this and here's how I would apply that, or some like tell a story with it. But that's a good way to get people like drawn into
I coached the grocery clerk again today.
Yeah.
All right.
My book. Yeah, and social right now tends to be the biggest piece. And I will tell you too, Kathy, like
but I've been hearing that Facebook is grandmas and racists was the
well,
phrase
what's
I heard.
interesting is I have said the same thing, and Meredith has gone out and done research, and it's still a viable, like it is one of the most used social media. TikTok people use, and the reels from TikTok even show up on Facebook, and the reels from Instagram, like things will show up there. TikTok is another one that you can throw like videos out on. But what I found too is when you go out and post, if you put a story out there, people will see that more, and reels, and I can show you a little bit when you get in town too, of how to do that.
Okay.
Because people they'll see it up here and then they just scroll over and tap on something, right? Same thing in Instagram. When you hop on Instagram, when you have like a reel or something, it shows up here, right? And you can add that just by clicking on the, oh God, sorry. Oh, that's the guy that I did my jump with out of the airplane. He has this
Oh,
dog that
really?
rides on the back of a motorcycle. Yeah. But it's a lot easier to just put some stuff out there on those
Okay.
sections. Lachelle's a good resource for that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's got the
I
social media
really
stuff.
don't want to be
Really.
sucked into social
dialed in.
media.
Well, and here's what I would
I'm
say,
so much
Kathy.
happier. They have studies showing people that people
Yeah.
know that they're happier away from it, and
Yeah.
they go
So pay
back to
somebody
it.
to do it.
Yeah.
And I have a name, Tiffany, who goes out to social and she does the reels for me and all of that stuff. And she's super reasonable. So if you want me to introduce you to her, I'm happy to.
All right. Introduce me.
Because she has different packages, right? Like she could just go out and
Mhm.
do a couple posts a week, you know. And the beautiful thing is there are tools now. Like we just did this tool, Metrical. It's like $14 a month, but it allows them to go out and put one post and post it out to YouTube, out to LinkedIn, all of the things, TikTok,
Mhm.
and then they don't have to like go out and manually post in 18 different places. So, and then you don't even have to go out there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean,
Right.
as much as I hate to admit this, I think I believe you and the research. And, you know, like I typically take about 15 minutes at the end of the day when I get home and I hop on to Facebook and because I mean, I do some posting now, but like they do a lot of the posting. And so if they have one like find your word or whatever that gets a ton of engagement, then I'll go out and say, oh, that's awesome, or thanks, or that, you know, like just quickly do that as just a part of my job. And then I just don't look at anybody else's social media. Like I don't look at anything else.
Mhm.
So, and you could even pay Tiffany to go out once a week or something and, you know, comment on some of them too.
Yeah.
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 Because I hear you as far as the social media thing. I do think to get the word out there, that's probably the best.
Cheapest option.
Yeah, best and cheapest option. And you don't have to be on a ton of it, right? But that's where asking other people to post, right? And take pictures or take a little video. I did that for my friend Nicole, who had an Etsy store. Like when I got my stuff, I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I got my new thing from, you know, Hello, We Are Cute or whatever, and posted it.
All right. Well, it'd be great to have a video.
Hey,
Right, is that what you're asking for, Kathy? That you would like a video for Debbie
Well,
talking
Debbie
about your
offered
book?
it.
volunteered one. Yeah, I
She
volunteered because
offered
I've
it.
asked her about like stock. Like I'm thinking about giving it away as swag for my October retreat, as well as like the new mastermind that starts and like all of my clients. Cause it gives a real now I'm only about halfway through, but it gives a really good basis about the chakras and the different bodies and the energies and like all of the things. So
Yeah.
yeah. Gets people into the language and understanding. Okay, we're 4 minutes over. I'm sorry, you guys.
Okay.
Have a fabulous day.
How dare
I know.
you?
Have a fabulous 4th of July, and then I will talk to you all next week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Sounds
don't
good.
forget too that the 16th is our Get Shit Done Day.
16th, I'm out. I'm in France. I thought we made it a different day.
No, that was the SPI. So on the 16th, we have a SPI strategic planning intensive. That's 2 hours. Our Get Shit Done Day is just where you show up with your list of stuff that you want to get done. And my
Good.
private clients, you all and the other mastermind are all together. And we come together and basically say, here's what I'm going to do in the next 55 minutes. And then we come back and say, done. Oh, I put 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Gonna keep working on it. Right. And it's
And then
amazing how much you get done.
you said something about the 23rd, but I don't have anything on the yellow calendar for 23rd.
Well, the 16th was supposed to be this next call, but I put the Get Shit Done Day. I was just asking if you wanted to reschedule to the 23rd, not that
Oh,
we have.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Copy.
That's Wayne Pignolet Day, right?
no, actually it changed to the 25th.
Okay.
My bestie who told me about it originally told me it was Tuesday, and then she said, oh no, it's Thursday. So I think she just had the wrong date.
Okay.
So
I changed it.
Yeah, so I will not be here on the 16th or the 18th
okay, awesome.
or the 11th.
Okay, so we're
Because
gonna
I'm gone from the 10th to the 19th.
Okay, so Kathy, it looks like the 11th and the 18th, you get one-on-ones.
I'm in.
Sweet.
Awesome. Okay, you guys, make sure if you haven't signed up for August yet, for your one-on-one. I think
Didn't I?
Kathy, we have you.
Because we did it in person before I left.
Yep. Pam, oh, I need to put in your last name because I have two Pams.
I have August 13th.
Okay, perfect. So we're good to go.
Good to go.
Awesome. You
Thank
have
you.
a fabulous 4th of July and call me if you need some help through those packages and then
Okay.
we'll talk later. Okay.
Yeah, and it would help if Sarah sends this recording out, so I have that too.
You betcha.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks.
She usually sends them out. The only one she doesn't is when I don't hit record or like when
makes
we
sense.
split up into groups. So,
Right.
okay. Have a great
All
one.
right. Bye, ladies.
Okay. Bye.